First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now. Thank you for joining us. You know, there's a lot happening nationally that is going to affect us here locally. And we're going to get a bigger look at what's happening, including the UAW strike and the looming government shutdown, and plus some other news coming from D.C. And to do that, I am joined now by our Fox 12 Oregon from D.C. It is Jon Decker. Jon, thank you very much from our D.C. Bureau. Appreciate you joining us. I know you're busy today. There's a lot happening. I thought, though, if we could start off talking about the UAW strike, which really had this huge expansion today. Can you tell us some more details about that?
Well, that's right. There's been some progress as it relates to one of the big three auto companies, that is Ford. But as it relates to the other two auto companies that the UAW is striking against, GM and Stellantis, which is the parent company of Dodge, Ram, and also Jeep, they've actually expanded the strike now to 38 plants in 20 states. So the impact of this strike is going to be felt a lot more than this past week. Remember, it's a week-long strike. As it relates to Ford, there has been some progress on some of the wage issues, and that's the reason why the UAW decided not to expand the strike against Ford plants.
Interesting, yeah. So tailoring it just to those ones outside of the Ford issue. So, but a lot more states, as you mentioned, being involved there. And we're hearing reports that maybe even here locally. I mean, probably everybody's going to be affected by this at some point, I would imagine. So some other big major issues that are happening, the looming potential government shutdown. I know there's been a lot of efforts to try to avoid that, but it does seem like maybe that's happening. Can you give us a little bit of the backstory on that and where we're at with that?
We are 8 days away from a federal government shutdown. The deadline is September the 30th at midnight. Why that date? Because that's the end of the fiscal year. The new fiscal year begins October the 1st, and you need to have a deal in place to fund the government for the next fiscal year. They are not there yet, and it seems unlikely at this moment that they will get to that place. When they return from their 3-day weekend, it will be Tuesday, 4 days to get a deal done. And Kevin McCarthy, who's the House Speaker, has been very frustrated because his conference, the various faction in his conference, cannot get on the same page, and that is really preventing an agreement from being struck.
Well, and if that were to happen, I mean, certainly, obviously, that would affect many, many different things all over the country. Can you give us maybe a rundown of what exactly would happen first if this shutdown does occur?
Well, every federal worker in every state in the country would be impacted. They would be furloughed while a government shutdown actually occurs. Then beyond that, beyond those individuals, you're talking about veterans who rely on VA benefits. They would be impacted as well by a government shutdown. I think that is one of the things that is driving many members of Congress that have a large constituency of veterans in their district to push to trying to find some sort of deal to avoid that kind of catastrophe from happening to the veterans that live in their particular district. And then you're talking about national parks. All of them would be shut down until an agreement is reached to fund that aspect of government. We're talking about the Department of the Interior, and without funding for the Department of Interior, those national parks would have to be shut down for the foreseeable future.
That's just a huge impact on so many different people when it comes down to that. So I guess we'll have to follow up next week and see if there's any kind of progress that's made on that. Something else that's making a lot of news today that's a really big headline is an announcement from the president about an office to tackle gun violence. And I know a lot of people are just finding out about this. Can you explain what this office is and who's heading it and how it's going to work?
Sure. The announcement was made within the past hour in the Rose Garden at the White House. I attended that announcement, and the president said that this particular office, which is based right here at the White House, will be headed by Vice President Kamala Harris. The purpose behind this office is having an office to implement some of the executive orders that President Biden has already signed during his 2.5+ years in office concerning gun violence prevention, and also implementing one of the few laws that has been signed in recent years concerning gun violence prevention, making sure there's implementation of aspects of that law, including background checks for those who purchase handguns and other types of guns who are under the age of 19. So big announcement. The Rose Garden was full of individuals coming in who may have been personally impacted by gun violence. They were here on hand for this announcement.
Wow, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot more information coming out about that here throughout the day and the coming days, and feedback from all sides on something like this, but definitely a major push there. Well, Jon, thank you very much for joining us here on Fox 12 Now. I appreciate it. I know you're very busy covering a lot of big stories that are happening today, and appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, Greg.
All right, and for everybody watching here on Fox 12 Now, so thank you. That was Jon Decker again from our DC Bureau. We're going to let him go and get back to his very busy day. But we are here covering those kinds of stories, things that are affecting people here locally. We'll have lots of updates coming up on our later newscasts surrounding both the UAW strike and anything else that could be affecting us here. I mean, that government shutdown could be huge. Something else we'll be talking about here on Fox 12 Now today will be the weather. As you can see right there, it's about to get really wet. And I know if you're like me, well, I know a lot of people are really looking forward to fall. I would like just a little bit more summer, and it seems like that's what we're gonna get maybe today, part of tomorrow. That's as far as the forecast is as we have right now until this comes in. A whole lot of rain happening. And to talk about that later on today on this show, I'm going to be joined by the one and only Mr. Mark Nelson, who's going to be talking about this. And we have the Fox 12 Weather podcast as well, where we have 4 of our meteorologists all talking about what's going to be coming up. So a lot of discussion on that today. And plus, there's more than that too. At 1:30 p.m., I'm going to be joined by Dwight from Lines for Life. And we're going to talk about them. They're a nonprofit here in the state of Oregon, really tackling suicide prevention. So it's going to be a good talk that we're going to be having. That's at 1:30 p.m. Pacific. So you can join me for that as well. So whatever platform you're watching on, whether you're live streaming us on our social media channels, you're on our app, you're on our website, lots of places to join this show. So I appreciate everybody being here. We're live every weekday at 1 p.m. So you can always be here. And if there's breaking news, which we have had several stories of breaking news over this week, you can always come right here and we will give you the up-to-date information that we know as we find out. Anytime between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. outside of our normal newscasts, this is where to go. So I'm going